Good morning. Good Monday morning. I call this meeting to order, and I want to warmly welcome everyone to meeting number 25 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. We have 1 hour with the Minister and 2 hours, which includes the first hour, with officials. So I will be very strict with time because I know that there's going to be a lot of questions. I want to make a few comments for the benefits of our witnesses and our members. You're all very experienced, so this is all just a reminder to everyone. For our minister, who has 5 minutes to speak at the onset, I will let you know when you have 1 minute left. And for all of our members, I will let you know when you have 1 minute left in terms of your questions and answers. Kindly, as always, wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. I will remind everyone to please not speak over each other. It is very hard for our translators to translate, and it makes their jobs difficult when we do so. Of course, please ensure that all of your comments are addressed through the chair. And members, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best as we can. And I know that today we are going to proceed with a respectful and very productive meeting. So I want to thank everyone in advance for your cooperation. Now, pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on February 23, 2026, the committee is commencing its study on the subject matter of the Supplementary Estimate C 2025-2026. All votes have been referred to the House on Thursday, March the 12th, so the committee can study the subject matter of the Supplementary C and should not report to the House. I don't know why that's in my notes, but okay. Before I introduce the witnesses, we have a quick budget to adopt for the study. The budget is $500 for the study. Can I please get agreement? Maybe just thumbs up. Monsieur Deschênes, c'est un budget de $500 pour cette...
A budget of $500 for this study.
Thumbs up for us. Okay, thank you. All in agreement. I would now like to welcome our witnesses for today's meeting. We have with us the Honourable Lena Mettledge-Diab, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Welcome to you, Minister. We also have from the Department of Citizenship and Immigration, we have Scott Harris, Associate Deputy Minister. We have Jean-Marc Gionnet, Acting Assistant Deputy Minister, Protection and Family Program Sector. Welcome. We have Annie Rémiard, Acting Chief Financial Officer. Welcome. And Bronwyn May, Director General, International Students Branch. And welcome to you as well. Minister Diab, I now invite you to make an opening statement of up to 5 minutes, after which we will proceed to rounds of questions.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for having invited me to appear. I am happy to outline how our government is taking back control over the immigration system and bringing immigration back to sustainable levels. We're doing this by prioritizing newcomers with the skills we need and attracting the best and the brightest from around the world. Both the Parliamentary Budget Officer's recent report and Statistics Canada's quarterly population update confirmed that our plan is working. New arrivals of temporary workers and international students dropped by 53% in 2025, putting us on track for non-permanent residents to make up less than 5% of the population by the end of 2027.
Labor gaps in industries where we don't have enough domestic talent. We're basing priorities on labor market data as well as input from employers, from communities, and our provincial and territorial counterparts to understand their needs. We're seeking qualified workers through the International Talent Attraction Strategy and prioritizing skilled workers to complement our domestic workforce. I recently announced our 2026 categories under the Express Entry system to invite candidates with the skills and experience needed to fill critical labor gaps in key sectors and occupations, including tradespeople to build homes and infrastructure, doctors and nurses to strengthen healthcare, and pilots, mechanics, and other transportation workers to strengthen our supply chains. Ces priorités cadrent avec les besoins du marché.
These priorities align with our labor market needs and what we're hearing from partners and support other government initiatives. Prioritizing researchers supports our national strategy for world-leading research and innovation. Prioritizing skilled military recruits and cybersecurity experts supports our defense industrial strategy. For the Supplementary Estimate C, which I'm here to discuss with you today, I wish to underscore how this funding will support our priorities.
Refugees and asylum claimants find housing, to enter the workforce, and to prevent shifting the burden onto local social services. Second, funds will support the ongoing modernization of our services with digital systems and tools. Third, the funding will fortify resources for the passport program to improve accessibility and convenience for Canadians with online passport renewals, allowing eligible Canadians to renew their passports from the comfort of their homes, and faster decision-making while upholding the integrity of these highly secure travel documents. Starting April 1st, we will guarantee that passport applications will be processed within 30 business days or they'll be free. And on the Supplementary C estimates, I have the very good guidance of the persons that do the budgeting and the accounting from the department on my right. So to conclude my opening remarks, we have a plan that's working to restore control, bring sustainability to our immigration system, and refocus on attracting the best talent. We're listening and making necessary, sometimes tough decisions to restore the balance, and we're seeing early signs that public confidence is improving because Canadians see a plan that makes sense and is being delivered. Discipline is vital to maintaining momentum. Nous agissons pour que la politique d'immigration
We're keeping immigration sustainable, responsible, and able to meet the country's economic and labor force needs. Thank you.
So much, Minister. And now we are going to turn to the first round of questions, which is for 6 minutes. I have Mr. Redekop up for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the officials for being here today and the Minister. Mr. Bill C-3 became law in December, and it seems like immigration lawyers have been celebrating this as a Christmas present almost. CTV said that C-3 has led to a spike in applications for those south of the border. And your government news agency, CBC, said that their headline was "Millions of Americans can now claim citizenship by descent." So, of course, we warned you about this at the committee. We spoke about all the different ways that this could go wrong. You ignored us. Can you tell me how many people have applied for proof of citizenship since December 15th?
Yes, thank you. I can. And I've seen some of the ads myself. Some of them are not realistic, frankly, and some of them could be fraudulent. But the number of applications that have been approved related to proof of process between December 15, 2025 and January 31, 2026 are approximately 1,301.
Those are proof of citizenship applications, or those are citizenship received?
Proof of applications processed.
Okay, and how many people have received citizenship because of C3 since that time?
That would be 1,301 between December 15, when it came into force, to January 31, 2026, which is the data that I have.
And have you seen a spike in people requesting proof of citizenship?
We have not.
I want to talk about the file review process. As you know, it's a system used at the Immigration Refugee Board that automatically approves asylum seekers from certain countries without interviewing them. I spoke with the chair of IRB a few weeks ago, and she defended that file review process and gave us data. 15% of their decisions were processed that way, and mainly to speed things up, which of course it does when you don't actually interview people. I asked the chair if she takes direction from you, Minister, and she basically said no, she's independent and she does what she wants to do. You are the minister responsible for the IRB. We all know that. Have you directed the IRB to stop the file review process?
Thanks for the question. I'm the Minister of IRCC, and IRB is an independent body relative to that. But protecting the integrity of the asylum system is critical to all of us as Canadians and parliamentarians.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I'm just going to
Can I
interrupt.
just speak to you about
No, I have
what
very limited
officers
time.
do, though?
I have very limited time. So you just said you're not responsible for IRB. Is that what you just said?
No. I said it's an independent adjudicative body.
Okay, so you have nothing to say, like you have no authority to tell them to do anything, is what you're saying?
I do meet with the chair, and officers do review each and every claim before they reach
So
the
have-
Immigration and Refugee Board.
So the simple question is this: have you directed them to stop the file review process, or you're okay with the file review process?
So nobody can claim asylum in Canada without being questioned. There's no doubt
Sorry,
about that.
I'm going to interrupt you again.
There's no rubber stamping of
point of
any
order.
claims.
Point of order, Mr. Fragiscatos?
The questions are being asked. We just need the minister to put on record the answer. We're not hearing the answer.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Point
The
of order.
questions, she's going in different directions in my questions. It is my time, and so I can get her to answer the questions that I want.
Okay, let's just give enough time for the minister to answer the question. Mr.
So can I re-ask the question?
Yes, please, Mr. Edicott.
I just want to know, did you direct the IRB to stop the file review process, or are you supportive of the file review process? That's my question.
All files are reviewed at the
we
front
understand.
end by
Chair.
IRCC, and officers do
Mr.
review them
Redicott?
each.
We understand how it works. We spent a whole meeting on this last time, so we don't need to talk about that. I'm going to take that as a no, which means
Point of order.
you are supportive of
Point of order, Mr. Zuberi.
The minister was mid-sentence in her first sentence. I didn't hear the completion of that first sentence in terms of the answer.
We'll add a little extra time, Mr. Redicott, but let's just allow the minister to respond.
Again, to be clear, there's
I'm
no
just gonna
rubber
stop right there.
stamping of any
Madam Chair.
claims. Each file
Your
is
time is
assessed
going, so you could do whatever
individually
you'd like, Ms.
on
Redicott.
its merits by highly trained
Point of order.
decision makers.
Point of order, Chair. Can
Point
you
of
just
order, Ms. Rempel-Garner.
redirect this back towards my colleague?
I-
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr.
so
over to you.
I'm going to ask a different question, because I think we know the answers. File review is something that the minister is appreciative of. I've seen evidence of IRGC agents right in Saskatoon, actually, using very threatening tactics to Iranians in Saskatoon. So given the war in Iran, have you talked to the public safety minister about strategies to prevent IRGC officials from receiving asylum in Canada?
Canada's listed the IRGC as a terrorist entity. I think all parliamentarians and Canadians know that. So the top IRGC members are not admissible to Canada. They
okay,
have their
Madam Chair,
visas
Madam
canceled.
Chair.
They lose their status
Excuse me,
and are
excuse me.
being removed.
Mr. Redicott, she's trying to answer the question.
She's not, actually. The question was, has she talked to the public safety minister about strategies to prevent IRGC members from getting asylum in Canada? That was the question.
We speak in government about all kinds of issues.
So
and
yes, so you have talked to the public safety minister.
we all have, and we are all concerned about the Iranian Canadian community,
Okay, I have
and
one
we
more
are
question
here
related
to
to that then.
ensure that we ensure
Minister,
our
my last
system is
question on
kept
this
safe.
is, given the war in Iran, have you asked the IRB to institute more careful screening of Iranian claims?
Again, each file is scrutinized
no,
individually
okay.
on its merits.
So, thank you. I'm going to pass the rest of my time to Mr. Davis.
A minute and 45 seconds, Mr. Davies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, one of the express entry objectives was to bring, I think, 5,000 doctors into Canada to help fill the gap of in the healthcare system. But you said that these doctors are already working in Canada on a temporary basis, helping patients, contributing to our healthcare system. But the Canadian Healthcare Network estimates that there are up to 13,000 internationally trained doctors that are already in Canada, stuck in a bureaucratic bottleneck, whether it's federal or provincial. Does it not make better sense to you to focus on those doctors that are already here driving Ubers and taxis to put them to work in the healthcare system?
So thank you. We tackle it on all directions. So what I did in the 5,000 works with every other measures that federally are being taken, but also provincially and with licensing bodies. So there's all kinds of work going on across the country.
Sorry, Minister, I have limited time, but if there are over 13,000 doctors sitting in Canada now looking for residencies, looking for accreditation, looking to go through this recertification process, you want to bring 5,000 more doctors into Canada, does that not just add to the backlog and the bottleneck of actually getting doctors? Because I have a need for 100 doctors in Niagara right now. And if I could send a message to all those people waiting, let me know who you are, because I want to deal directly with you to try to find pathways for these doctors to fill spots that are available in Niagara. But how are you going to fix that problem?
15
seconds,
I would love
Minister.
it if you did use it. I will point you to an article that was in the paper 2 days after I announced it with a Toronto doctor that has all these patients that have been waiting that had just got pulled into the express entry. These are doctors that are already in Canada, that are practicing, that are here on temporary residence. So the measures are working, and I look forward to...
These aren't doctors that are
Thank you,
working.
Mr. Davies.
are
Thank you,
working.
Minister.
No, they're not.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Thank you, Minister. And now we have 6 minutes for Ms. Sodi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here today, along with all of the other officials. Minister, in your opening remarks, you talked about how the funding in these budget supplements reinforces the government's priorities on immigration. Can you please tell the committee more about what these priorities are and what progress we have seen on them?
Certainly, thank you for your question. I'm going to be a bit repetitive, so forgive me, but I feel like it's important for Canadians to hear this, but really members of this committee as well. In case people forget, Canadians gave our government a mandate to restore sustainability to our immigration and to reduce pressure on housing and services, and that's exactly what we are doing. Under our plan, Canada is stabilizing the permanent residence population. We're reducing the temporary resident of up to 5% of our population by the end of 2027. We're reaching the highest proportion of economic migrants in decades by when we tabled our plan, and we're attracting the top talent that Canada needs. Reducing international student numbers is essential to lowering the share of non-permanent residents to below that 5% of Canada's population. There 5 reports have just come out. Recent analysis from the Parliamentary Budget Officer, from TD Bank, from Rentals.ca, Statistics Canada, and CMHC. They all confirm that Canada is on track and that our reforms are already helping ease pressure on housing and the labour market. In 2025, the temporary resident arrivals were down by more than a half. The asylum claims were down by more than a third, and our population stopped growing and dipped slightly. Since 2024, the international student population alone has fallen by a third. In the fourth quarter of 2025, the population of non-permanent residents fell by 171,296, a fifth consecutive quarter of non-permanent residence reductions that has brought this group to 6.5% of Canada's population as of January 1, 2026. The asking rents have dropped for 17 consecutive months, and Statistics Canada reports that housing inflation is the lowest it has been in nearly 5 years. Last year, we met each and every one of our immigration ranges for the first time in at least a decade, and the Parliamentary Budget Officer has confirmed that we are on track to fulfill the commitments that we made to Canadians. Canadians can see their new government does not just have targets, we are meeting targets. Unlike other parties where, quite frankly, they have a script on immigration, and that's fine, that's them, but we have a plan, and our plan is working. It is to ensure that we have a sustainable immigration system for the future, and it is to deliver results for Canadians.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your very well-detailed answer, and you're right, it is important for Canadians to hear what you're saying, and especially for members of this committee. You did mention a little bit about the asylum system in your previous answer, and I'd just like to turn to some of the broader discussions we've been hearing about Canada's asylum system. You were right when you said our government has been clear that the system must strike the right balance, which is offering protection to those who truly need it while maintaining fairness and sustainability for Canadians. Can you begin by explaining how the current system ensures that the asylum protection is reserved for individuals who meet Canada's legal definition of a refugee rather than serving as an alternative pathway to immigration?
So thank you for that. I think last time, or one of the times I was here, I've been here a couple of times, we really talked a lot about C-12, strengthening Canada's immigration system and the Borders Act, and I'm happy to see that it's now passed through the Senate. The reforms, well, first of all, the asylum numbers have gone down by a third, and we are seeing signs that they are continuously dropping from previous years when they were high. So that's a good thing. We've also strengthened our integrity system quite a bit by really focusing on dealing with claims. We've enhanced the integrity and the fairness of the system. We are addressing challenges faced by the in Canada asylum system through the introduction of system-wide efficiencies and enhancements that improve all stages of the asylum application process, from the initial application through the decision-making to post-decision stage. And creating the new ineligibilities for the asylum claims will prevent the misuse and reduce pressures from potential surges. And we are already, even though it has not gone into law yet, it will soon, I hope, we are already seeing positive results because it is working. People are recognizing if you want to emigrate to Canada, if you want to stay in Canada, you better do it the legal way. That is, we want to maintain the integrity of our immigration system. The asylum system is here for specific reasons.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Ms. Sodi. Maintenant, on a 6 minutes pour Monsieur Deschênes.
We now have 6 minutes for Mr. Deschênes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good day, Madam Minister. A few minutes ago, the Auditor General of Canada tabled a report in the House of Commons, which is quite devastating with regard to the work carried out by your department to ensure the integrity of the foreign students program. What we have learned from this report, Madam Minister, is that teaching institutions have sent 1,500 reports in stating that here are students who may not be respecting the conditions, and your department only undertook investigations of around 4,000 of them. Moreover, of the 4,000 investigations, a quarter haven't been completed. 45% haven't been completed because you had no information back from the people involved. So there has been a study undertaken then by the Auditor General showing that 800 foreign students had used fraudulent documents in this process, stating that they were from a CEGEP that's non-existent or some such claim. Of these 800 examples that have been submitted to you, well, they had already been approved. And your department, for all of these cases, has not undertaken any correction. Ms. Diab, are you satisfied with the work of your department? Thank you very much for the question. There are a number of issues to address in this question. To begin with, allow me to answer by saying that I have had a short meeting with the Auditor General, but I have not yet had time to read the report. I thank the Auditor General's office for the report, and I also want to say that the measures she speaks of are over 18 months. However, we are now the report is for 18 months, and 4 months of those 18, I was the minister, or have been the minister, and the changes that will take place are planned for the next 4 or 5 years. Yes, but as the minister in place, you have this Auditor General telling you that in your department, 800 cases are based on, at least many of them, at least on fraudulent documents, and that your department hasn't taken action on this. And now you are minister of this department. Are you satisfied? We truly appreciate the report. And we will be doing, even more than what is requested. And the Auditor General also recognizes the progress we have already made to strengthen the programs. But this is about serious errors affecting the integrity of the program, serious mistakes. So, again, I ask you, as Minister, are you satisfied with the work of your department? Could I please continue in English? Would that be acceptable to you?
Months of over a 4-year period that the program is happening, we accept the report recommendation, and we will be working with the provinces and territories.
Yes, but aren't you concerned, at least a little bit, by this information that 800, and that there are 4,000 cases only out of so many more that should be examined? Yes, of course.
Et pour faire 2,000 par année.
So basically, the funding we have is to cover 2,000 cases a year, and we will work on this, with this, and based on the recommendations, which we fully accept.
Strengthen the international student program, and we will take concrete steps to address the general recommendations.
I'm very happy to hear that you are concerned. I'm concerned. I don't understand how this can be the case, how this could happen, that there was a request that the department follow up on this, and the colleges, universities were asked to send in reports, but there's no one there to analyze these reports sent in, and there are investigations of only 4,000 cases of the 150,000, and of those 4,000, there are these 40% which don't, go anywhere because nobody responds to the requests for further information, and it's just like dropped or shelved. So isn't this very serious, a lack of integrity? As I have said, we will work closely with the provinces regarding the 4,000 you've mentioned. We will evaluate more in depth the requests for extension of permits, and also we will ensure a more effective follow-up and systemic follow-up of all possible fraud and inadequacy. You've mentioned finances. What you're telling us is that the department needs more funding to be able to ensure that the system continues to work correctly. Well, let me say that's not a bad idea. We are also working.
Next, we have a second round of questions in 5 minutes for Mr. Menegakis, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister and officials, for being with us today. Minister, do you believe that the names of known IRGC operatives and other terrorist organizations should be immediately released once known?
Well, thanks for the question. I believe you're referring to an earlier committee where that was posed, and I believe there was a name that had been already reported to in the papers. I'm not privy to such information.
My question is, do you believe that once we know who they are, that their names should be immediately released?
Again, CBSA works on those investigations and on those deportations and removals.
Yes or no? Do you think they should be released?
I leave it for CBSA to answer that question.
You're deflecting it over to CBSA. Is it the Liberal government's position that the IRB should withhold the names in future of terrorists that are known to be terrorists that your department led into the country?
So again, in public safety reasons, there's many times when names are released for exactly those, that, but it's not something that I would be privy to as the minister.
Well, the IRB is under your purview, Minister.
Again, as I said, it's an adjudicative body that is independent of government.
It is, but on your site, the IRB reports through to Parliament through the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, and that's you. So we can't deflect over to them. The CBSA found.
I don't sit in hearings. That wouldn't be appropriate.
No, we're not talking about hearings. But you're here reporting on behalf as the Minister of the Crown, and this is under your purview. So these are fair questions, I believe. The CBSA found Afshin Pernoon, a 22-year official in the Islamic regime in Iran, with the title of Director General. The IRB declined to deport him. Do you support that decision?
Again, I'm going to have to refer you to the decision makers of those
Did
decisions.
you appeal that decision?
I'm not familiar with the decision. I'm sorry.
You're not familiar with it. Liberal minister after Liberal immigration minister has allowed IRGC officials into our country. Reports say about 700 of them, at least, if not more, are in the country. CBSA officials have testified before us that the IRCC officials can and do, on occasion, overrule the CBSA and issue permits, even though the CBSA has given a negative assessment. Why?
Again, as I said, the IRB is a quasi-judicial organization. When a claimant is before the IRB, sorry?
The question was the CBSA. Your department overrules the CBSA on occasion. Why? CBSA is a law enforcement agency. They deem somebody inadmissible into the country, and on occasion your department has overruled the decision of the people on the ground that have deemed somebody inadmissible. Not the IRB, the CBSA. Why?
If an individual is inadmissible based on the immigration laws, then they are inadmissible and they are deported.
Deported? There's been one person deported since 2022, Minister. One. Okay? Do you think it's appropriate for immigration officers to override national security findings from the agency responsible for border security?
Again, national security, border security falls within the purview of public safety.
We know that,
and
Minister.
Public safety is paramount in Canada, and those decisions are made in the public interest of Canadians.
But it's your department that overrules CBSA officials. And that's my point. Do you think it's appropriate for your department to overrule the CBSA officials?
1 minute.
Thanks, Chair. Again, public safety is paramount.
Minister,
And public safety officers and the department make those decisions.
do you speak with your colleagues, Minister? I mean, not only your staff, because, there seems to be a lot of deflection. We're not playing hockey here, deflect here, deflect there, hoping to get a goal. We can't have the IRB saying, oh, we're independent, and they're supposed to be reporting through you. The IRCC saying, well, we don't really care what the CBSA is saying. We're gonna overrule the CBSA. We can't keep passing the buck here. At the end of the day, these are people that are being allowed into the country from your department that are in our communities that have a terrorist background, and there's 700 of them. I represent a riding called Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill, and many of them are in my riding.
So if these people are inadmissible, they will be deported, and their visas will be canceled by IRCC.
You've deported
CBSA will deport them.
Thank you, Mr. Menegakis.
One.
Thank you, Minister. That is 5 minutes. Next, we have Mr. Zuberi for 5 minutes. Mr. Zuberi.
Thank you, Madame Chair, and merci à la ministre d'être ici aujourd'hui.
And thank you, Madam Minister, for being with us here today.
We just had the Auditor General's report issued, and we have yet to hear, Madam Minister, a commentary from you. I'd like to give you time to just speak to the Auditor General's report. If you have some feedback. I understand that it was just released, so what you're saying right now is very, very preliminary. But if you have any initial feedback on that report, I'd like to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Zuberi. Appreciate that. I haven't read the report, but I have been given high-level information on it, and I also did have at the end of last week an opportunity to speak virtually with the writer of the report. So I thank her for her work. Obviously, it's very important that these audits happen. What I do want to stress is this is a preliminary look at the International Student Program. It covers 18 months of reforms out of a 4+ year reform that IRCC has initiated. 4 months of that 18 months is since I've been a minister. We need to remember the context of these changes to the program, and I know some of you were around in 2022. I was told that, I was around, but I was not a member of this committee, that the International Student Program, you studied that very intensely in 2022 and made several recommendations. And my understanding is you're doing that again this year, and we welcome whatever recommendations that you're going to come up with after the study here as well. The context, though, is really important, and that is prior to the 2025 Immigration Levels Plan, Canada did not have annual targets for temporary residents. And that wasn't Liberal government, Conservative government. I guess those were the two political parties that would have been in power in the last decades. But so in the post-pandemic years, we saw rapid demand-driven increase in international students that quickly became unsustainable. And we realized, previous government, everybody, parliamentarians, Canadians, that could not go on. So beginning in 2024, the government made quick and significant changes because Canadians told us it had to happen. There were some big disruptive pivots to reduce the numbers and strengthen integrity, and we're seeing results, and we're seeing that it's worked. The international student population has dropped by a third since 2024. Student arrivals in 2025 have dropped over 60% from 2024, and that trend continues in 2026. Pressure on housing and services is being reduced, and asking rents, as I said in the previous response, have dropped. Following the first phase of the government reform, the sector responded with the plea of predictability. In fact, I held many, many meetings as the minister with many in the sector that said, please, 2024 changes were so hard on us. We need predictable. We need to know what is happening. So I heard that, and I believe I have delivered a stable student target for 2026 to 2028 in that levels plan. So the early audit cannot offer a complete picture of these reforms. It can inform, though, what we do as a go-forward basis, as well as the committee, as well as the report that you will be putting out as well. So, but the report and the Auditor General does recognize the progress that we are doing to reduce the student numbers, to diversify the student population, and to improve the integrity of the program. So we do agree with most of her recommendations, and if you'd like, I can tell you what it is that we are doing to ensure, that what our actions are.
I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this throughout the day. In the last moment that we have, can you talk about how confidence has been reinstilled in the system, given the changes you personally and your ministry has been making?
20 seconds, please.
We have seen confidence being restored in the immigration system, not just because of the international student changes that are made, but also of the asylum numbers and of many other things. Just the tabling of our levels plan. We have a stable, transparent, sustainable, predictable plan that Canadians know that what their government will be following, and people coming in Canada to Canada also know.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. Zuberi. Monsieur Deschênes, 2 minutes et demie, c'est à vous.
Mr. Deschênes, you have 2.5 minutes, and you have the floor. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Madam Minister. I would like to have us discuss the where asylum seekers are sent throughout Canada. As you know, 37% of asylum seekers are in Quebec, although the Quebec population represents only 22% of Canada's population. Why should we in Quebec continue to accept this situation? Why shouldn't that be changed to ensure that each and every province takes in and equitable number of asylum seekers coming into the country. Thank you for the question. With your permission, I'll respond in English.
Was in my federal, provincial, territorial meetings, we discussed the asylum claim, and we discussed the fact that Quebec and Ontario have substantially a lot more than other parts of the province. And I'm also aware that before I became a minister, both New Brunswick, while the previous minister had requested other provinces to take asylum numbers, and I am very much aware that New Brunswick and Newfoundland had took the ministers up on that. So there are numbers there. I don't have them right with me. So they have taken some numbers.
Terre-Neuve et Labrador, c'est 59.
So Newfoundland and Labrador, that's 59. Well, a few more than 59. 190,000 asylum seekers. So, yes, it's more than 59, though, because I discussed this with the Premier of New Brunswick and Newfoundland and Labrador, and I know that it's a 2-year plan they have underway there. This is the first of the 2 years, but it is more than 59. What will we be doing for the other provinces that aren't doing their part and shouldering their part of the burden? The good news is that the numbers are dramatically down compared to 2024, but we will continue to work on this. How? By reducing the number even more? Yes, but what about spreading them around the country? As I have said, there are 2 provinces
Merci, Monsieur Deschênes. Merci,
Thank you, Mr. Deschênes.
5 minutes for Ms. Rempel-Gardner.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, the Supreme Court recently ruled in the Kanien'da ruling that pending asylum claimants in Quebec, many of whom illegally crossed the border at Roxham Road with your government's blessing, have the constitutional right to taxpayer-funded daycare. Do you affirm Quebec's right to use the notwithstanding clause in this specific case should it choose to do so?
Thank you for that question. I know that the government and the Minister of Justice is seized with that particular case, and they will have more to say on that. It's not in my purview as the immigration minister.
It is, though. I mean, experts are saying that ruling is likely to overturn your copay for luxury health benefits for failed asylum claimants. Have you told the Justice Minister that he should probably get on this?
So thanks again for that question. I believe what we have introduced with the copay and the changes that we're making, I believe they're fair and that they're sustainable and are done with the best intention of protecting the asylum or the people that really need the health care, but also protecting.
But just like the CBC reported that you don't talk to your colleagues. So did you tell the Justice Minister that this was a problem?
Again, the Justice Department and the Justice Minister is seized with legal cases and
did you go,
constitutional
hey, Sean,
cases.
this is a problemo? Like, have you talked to him yet?
Again, the changes that we propose to the system, we believe are fair and balanced.
I know you don't answer questions and like salad. We established that last time. The CBC reported that there's 2.1 million temporary residents.
Hold time. Mr. Zubair, point of order.
It was myself, actually.
Oh,
that's fine.
Mr.
No problem.
Francescato, sorry, you both sound alike.
We need to hear the answers, and there's a decorum that we all should abide by.
For the record, I would like to put it on the record that it was, in fact, the minister who introduced Tabouleh at this committee before. So she introduced that as fair game.
Thank you, Mr. Francescato. We do want to maintain decorum and order. Ms. Rempel-Gardner, continue with your question.
So, Minister, the CBC reported that there's about 2.1 million temporary residents who'll be left in Canada with expiring visas by the end of this year. There's probably about 500,000 undocumented persons on top of that. But even with the Auditor General's findings, you're going to issue another 215,000 foreign work permits of one sort or another this year. Why are you doing that, even though we know most of these millions of citizens won't leave the country involuntarily? Like, that seems kind of crazy to me. Like, why are you bringing in 200,000 more people when we have a really big youth jobs crisis to fill them with low-skilled foreign labor?
So we are aware of the numbers of temporary resident documents that are scheduled to expire each year. Couple of things. Some individuals with expiring documents might hold multiple permits. It could be study, it could be work. Clearly, though, people who have expired permits are expected to leave. Even your leader has said that last week.
Yeah, but the problem
so
is
I think,
you're not letting them.
no one
You're
should
bringing
stay
in more
here
people
longer
while-
than legally
hold on.
allowed.
No,
Point
Ms.
of order.
Rempel
Gardner.
You guys keep censoring me in this committee.
Miss
This is my
Rempel-Garner,
time.
no one is censoring you. What
You
I'd like
are.
to tell you, Miss Rempel-Garner, please, at the beginning I said, please do not talk over each other. Very hard for our translators to translate two people at the same time. Kindly allow the answer to happen, and then we'll. Yes,
So
Miss
the
Rempel-Garner.
witness is obfuscating. She's trying to run the clock because she doesn't have answers to why she's letting her colleague Patty kowtow to Tim Horton workers.
That's not a point of
Okay,
order, Miss
thank you.
Rempel-Garner.
All right, on
so
that point.
There
on
you
that
go, Miss
point,
Rempel. Yes, Mr. Zuberi, point of order.
Thank you for giving space to all of us to raise the points of order and to the witness for giving the time. On a number
This
of
is not a point of order.
occasions-
This is debate.
Mr.
and he's
Mr.
taking my
Zuberi,
time.
not a point of
Do I have
order.
the floor?
No. Like,
Madam
enough
Chair?
of this.
Mr. Zuberi, I heard it's not a point of order.
I was
Ms.
about to
Rempel-
get to my point of order.
Okay, please get to your point of order, Mr.
No,
Zuberi.
this is my time, and this is now
your,
debate.
Your clock is stopped, Ms. Rempel-Garner. Mr. Zuberi.
On more than one occasion in this round, the witness was not able to complete her answer and her sentence. She was interrupted mid-sentence, and I hope that we can actually hear.
This is not a point of
what
order. This
Thank
is
you,
no,
thank you,
point
Mr.
of order on
Thank
my
you, Mr.
privilege.
Zuberi.
The
and
Liberals
thank
on
you,
this
Ms.
committee
Rempel-Garner.
are continue to every member of this committee because the minister is weak. The CBC reported that
not a point
no,
of
no,
order.
This is,
Thank you.
My
No.
privilege is being
N-
violated
not
here
a point of
because
order.
you guys keep censoring me. Why don't you just
Ms.
let her fail
Rempel-Garner,
as you guys
Ms.
talk to the
Rempel-Garner,
CBC about?
Ms. Rempel-Garner, thank you. That is, I
So
want to maintain
embarrassing on
order
behalf of the
and
Liberals.
decorum. You are not being censored. I'm going to start the clock now if you want to continue with your questions.
Yeah. So, did you tell your colleague Patty to take a flying leap when she said that Tim Hortons should get more temporary foreign workers after the jobs numbers came out last week? Like, why aren't those jobs going to Canadian workers? And why are you guys kowtowing to Tim Hortons?
So lovely performance as usual, Madame. Thank you for the question. We have a letter from many Conservative members who have written to me and to Minister Haidu and to another minister of requesting those changes. In fact, pleading that they require those changes.
That's right.
In their province.
They were pleading to end the temporary foreign worker program and replace it with a standalone program for agriculture.
Absolutely not the case.
No, it is, and I know for a fact.
Absolutely not the case. You were not copied on those letters.
Oh,
We
I
have them.
was. I was, and I saw them, and now you're misleading the committee. Would you
Well-
like me to read that to you, or would you like to say that that was a performance too? Look, I get it. Your colleagues have to cover for you. They go to the CBC to say they can't talk to you. You don't talk to your colleagues and the ministers about serious issues like this. That's a problem.
One
so I'm going
minute.
to ask you this. You were supposed to be here for 2 hours today. Why are you leaving at the 1 hour mark? Is it because you can't handle basic questions like this? Like, why aren't you fighting for Canadian kids' jobs?
That's exactly what we do day in, day out. I fight
not
for
my
them as
point
the
of
minister.
order.
The government is fighting for them.
Point
I
of order.
say to
He's
you,
now
it's
now-
best that
now
you
he's
start
overtalking
fighting with
the
them as
minister.
Point
well.
of order.
No, point of order. I understand that my colleague
Point,
wants the minister's
hold
job,
on, hold
but
on.
he's overtalking her
Ms.
now.
Rempel-Garner.
Like, oh my God.
Ms. Rempel-Garner, please calm down. Mr. Fredescatos, point of order.
Members have time to ask questions. Of course, I respect that. But
you
let's
overtalked
focus
the
on
minister.
Ms. Rempel-Garner,
policy.
please
We
allow the
should
point of
focus,
order.
of course, on policy and not turn this into personal issues.
Thank you.
No. This is not a point of order. This is Liberal ministers trying.
Not a
This
point
is-
of order.
You guys are eating my time
Miss,
up because this
we
woman
actually have
can't
stopped
answer
your
basic
time.
questions on her
Ms.
file.
Rempel-Garner, please
Like,
calm down. We have stopped your
Don't
time.
tell a woman to calm down. That's very
Please,
sexist.
Please, Ms. Rempel-Gardner.
It's
Would you
ridiculous.
like to finish? You have 39 seconds.
I can't
Thank you.
imagine. Like, you know what?
Ms.
I would just say
Rempel-Gardner,
this.
did you want to continue with your questions?
Yeah, I'm on it. I mean,
Okay,
I just
thank you.
I understand why your colleagues, Lena, went to the CBC and said that you don't take questions and that they don't like you and think you're doing a bad job. Because you need people to interject over top of you to answer basic questions. You should do better. You should tell Patty not to kowtow to Tim Hortons. You should tell Sean to not allow judges to give leniency to non-citizen criminals. That's your job, and you're not doing it. You are a bad minister.
We are doing our job, and you're a bad performer. Perhaps you should go back to performance.
Thank you, Ms. Rempel-Gardner. Thank you, Minister. Next, we have 5 minutes for Ms. Zaid.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, and all the officials for appearing before the committee. Minister, being a member of Parliament from the City of Toronto and seeing a funding of nearly $63 million related to supporting the asylum claimants in the City of Toronto, could you please talk about this funding and how we are working with the City of Toronto to transition people into stable long-term housing and reducing the strain on Toronto's shelter system?
Thank you for that question. In Sub-C, there is an amount for the transitioning of people into, first, the City of Toronto for asylum, but also other. It's not just asylum, but it's also for others that are using the system. It is a temporary measure to transition people. I'm proud to say that under my watch, there are no asylum claimants in any hotels. The government and the department is not in that. That has been transitioned out early this last year or in the last year. We are also helping various cities. The City of Peel is a great example. Funding was given to the City of Peel to build centers where it's a welcoming center where many people are using the center as well to welcome people and to transition them into permanent housing. We are encouraging the City of Toronto to do exactly that as well. It being in
Point of order, Chair. Yes, I noticed that the meeting requirement, the motion that was passed by committee was to have the minister here for 2 hours, yet she's only staying for 1 hour. I'm just wondering why she's in violation of the meeting minutes. Does she have something to hide?
Ms. Rempel-Gardner, I think that is the time that the minister has, is 1 hour, and so let's continue with this 1 hour.
Well, it was for 2 hours. Maybe she can stay for 2.
I think that is not unusual for ministers to be invited for 2 hours and stay for 1 hour. That is not unusual, Ms. Rempel-Gardner. Let's not waste any more time. We have only a few more minutes with the minister. If we can continue with your response, Ms. Minister, did you want to continue with your response, please?
Thank you. And for the record, my understanding is I'm here for the 1 hour because I do have other commitments. Again, as I was saying, IRCC supports the housing needs of asylum claimants.
Point of order on
through
decorum.
the IHAP.
The minister just
and
laughed.
since 2017,
Ms. Rempel-Gardner, that's not a point
we
of
have
order.
supported the program.
Ms. Rempel-Gardner, decorum
Point
is
of order.
kindly...
Point of order.
The minister,
Yes.
I'd like to
Chair.
finish mine on decorum. The minister just chuckled at flying in the face of a committee meeting motion. She's supposed to be here for 2 years. And she said, I have other commitments. Ha ha.
Point of order, Chair.
Decorum.
I have a point of order from Ms. Zaid and then Mr. Fredescatus.
I asked Minister a question and I'm trying to get an answer. So please, I think members should not
Kinda sucks when the shoe's on the
allow
other
the
foot,
minister
huh?
to
Ms.
answer the
Zaid.
question.
Okay, Mr. Fredescatus, do you still have a... Mr. Zuberi, I can't tell your voices apart, Mr. Zuberi.
I'll just, I'm good. Thank
Thank
you, Madam Chair.
Minister, if you want to continue with your answer.
Yes, thank you. So, as I was saying, Budget 2024 had provided $1.1 billion to extend the IHAP for 3 years, starting in 2024-2025, with a renewed focus to help partners move away from emergency measures, which were the hotels, and develop more sustainable and cost-effective housing solutions for asylum claimants across Canada. The program funding was flowed solely on a cost-shared reimbursement basis in response to costs incurred by jurisdictions. And as of 2025, the IHAP recipients, including Toronto, were to employ more sustainable and cost-effective housing solution for asylum claimants. And as I said, I talked about a specific one that I am familiar with as well, the Peel, where they have a reception center and transitional housing, and that was in line with our updated conditions. That was so, and we will
thank you, Minister.
continue to do our best.
Yeah,
I
so
think the good news is the asylum numbers are going down because we know that costs are going to be high when you have high volumes. But with the introductions that we have done, with the C-12 measures that will be coming, we are continuing to see asylum numbers going down, and therefore those numbers should be going down.
Minister, I also note that the funding for the digital platform modernization program, so much of the casework in our offices in the constituencies is people requesting the updates and those should be available to them online. So could you please speak about this modernization project and how the government is working to improve the customer services for Canadians and others accessing the immigration system?
One minute.
So that's
Minister.
an excellent question because, as we all know, IRCC operates a vast service delivery network, and it engages with millions of clients across Canada and around the globe. And so to deliver modern client-centric services that are more efficient and transparent, we are looking at a strong digitally enabled immigration system because it's critical. So there's new digital technologies that will transform IRCC services by simplifying the online application process, which people have just seen how the passport one has started, and it will also enhance the client access to real-time application status by increasing the efficiency, and it will also strengthen our integrity and border protections.
Thank you so much, Minister. Thank you, Ms. Zaid. We only have a couple of minutes left, so I'll give 1 minute to the Conservatives and 1 minute to the Liberals. Mr. Ho, you have 1 minute.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Minister, if someone were to say that they don't think international students are taking away jobs from Canadians given the labor shortages that are happening today, would you agree with that statement?
So international students, it's funny, I just came from Sudbury and I met with many different groups. The international students are here first and foremost to study. Secondly, they are allowed to work 24 hours in the week. That is sort of whatever. And they are filling some labor gaps that some of the rural and other communities desperately need. So we do want to, we recognize the importance of international students. And we thank them for that.
Mark Miller said, I don't think international students are taking jobs from other people given the labor shortages that are happening today, end quote. Do you agree with that statement? Is he wrong?
I'm sorry, say that again?
He said, quote, I don't think international students are taking away jobs from other people given the labor shortages that are happening today. Is he wrong to say that?
I'm not sure who said that, but again.
Mark Miller.
Pardon?
Mark Miller, the former Liberal minister.
Okay, again, as I said, international students are here to get a good education from our post-secondary institutions. That's why we've actually strengthened the master's
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Ho. And then we have 1 minute for Mr. Zuberi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the 1 minute I have, I'd like to ask you about the relationship between you as minister and the IRB, because there's been some line of questioning that has created confusion about that relationship. Do you actually direct the IRB precisely? You talked a bit about their independence.
So thanks for that question. I mean, as somebody who is a lawyer, practiced 22 years in law before going into politics, and quite frankly did some administrative law, but also sat as an adjudicator and an arbitrator on some smaller provincial kind of whatever. I respect, there's a line to be drawn here. I respect the role of that independent quasi-judicial body, as I believe Canadians do. They have a role to play. They are doing the best they can. We, as a government and as a ministry, we also have a role to play. Parliamentarians have a role to play.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Zuberi. And I want to thank the Minister for her time today and for being patient to answer all of our questions. I would like to now suspend for a few minutes so the Minister can leave and we can continue with the officials. are now going to continue with the rounds of questions that we began in the first hour. So we're now starting our third round, which is 5 minutes. And we begin with Mr. Ho for 5 minutes. Mr. Ho.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my questions are primarily deal with international students. So Ms. May from the International Students Branch might want to pitch in. So after a decade of costly Liberal policies, Canadians are dealing with a homegrown cost of living crisis. We're seeing rising unemployment rate for students is at 18%, and millions of Canadians are relying on food banks just to survive. But earlier this month, in March, the Liberal government announced millions of dollars for scholarships for hundreds of students from India to study in Canada, along with hundreds of researcher positions. So at a time of rising deficits and rising costs, why can this government find room to announce support for non-Canadian students, but not properly support Canadian students?
Thank you for the question, and I will turn to Ms. May if there's additional detail there. So I believe the program that you're speaking to is a program to recruit graduate students and higher level education in the pursuit of bringing talent to Canada with an interest in ensuring that we have the skills to build the future and making sure that we remain competitive in terms of attracting top talent to Canada.
Do we not have enough top talent here in Canada?
We want to build on that, obviously, in order to ensure the best opportunities for the future.
Right. Did your department provide advice on this policy at all?
We would have provided advice in terms of how it might operate from an immigration perspective, like what the tools would be in place to support that program.
So is that a yes? You did provide advice, or
advice in terms of the design of how we would issue permits and what requirements would be needed from an immigration perspective.
So were you consulted by any of the Liberal ministers specifically, or?
Well, we would work with our colleagues, and it was our colleagues in ISED that would have led this initiative.
Right. Well, this policy is especially damning because in the Liberal budget last year, they've announced restricting student grants for Canadians pursuing education at private institutions. So we're essentially taking money away from Canadian students and giving them to foreign students. So does that seem fair to you?
I can't speak to the changes that were made in either of those programs specifically, as they're not in our program mandate.
But I mean, what message? I mean, it is. I mean, your department would be issuing the international student permits. Is that right?
We would issue the permits.
So it is
they're associated with those.
Still a policy that would fall under the purview of your department partially. So what kind of message do you think that sends Canadian students?
I can't speculate in terms of what message it sends to students, but I would say that it's part of the suite of continuing to grow the skills that Canada needs for the future, both domestically and internationally. But I would encourage you to discuss some of these questions with
a recent recent report from the Federal Department of Employment admitted for the first time that an 18% jobless rate for Canadian students was due to, quote, large numbers of foreign students. So do you, as a senior immigration department official overseeing international students, agree with the statement from the Department of Employment and Jobs?
I haven't particularly seen that report, but I do know that we have tightened up the access to employment for students in response to some of the changing economic dynamics in Canada. As you know, we've reduced the number of hours that students can work while they're studying, and we've reduced access to postgraduate work permits.
So let's say you made those announcements. So is it because of the large number, quote, large number of foreign students that are perhaps taking those jobs away from domestic students, from Canadian students? Is that?
I think this bring program clarity, absolutely, in terms of ensuring that people who come to study are here to study and not to work, and that is the principal focus of our policy suite, is to ensure that
so you're not so you disagree with the report then, because you're saying that most of the students are coming just to study and then they're going to leave. But in that report, it quotes that the 18% jobless rate we see with Canadian students is part of the impact. So part of the reason for that is the large number of foreign students.
As I said earlier, we want to make sure that the program is fit for purpose, and I think, as you know, we've been reducing the number of students coming to Canada in part because of the changing economic circumstances in Canada.
The former Liberal Immigration Minister, Mark Miller, said in 2023, quote, "I don't think international students are taking jobs away from other people given the labor shortages that are happening today," end quote. Do you agree with that statement?
Can't speak to Minister Miller's statements at the time.
But if
I
it
think
was
the
said today,
context
do
in
you agree with that
2023
statement?
are
If it was
different
said
than-
today, do you agree with that statement? Yes or no?
I think the context is different today. I think we have far fewer students in Canada than we did in 2023 by far. But that said, I think.
But it's tied to jobs.
Thank you,
that's
Mr.
part of
Ho. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Next, we have 5 minutes for Ms. Sodi. Your time starts now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the last hour, the minister discussed Canada's asylum system. More broadly, can you tell the committee how the government works with the provinces and territories to ensure that supports for asylum claimants are managed in a way that is both responsible and aligned with capacity on the ground? And that's to whoever wishes to answer.
Thank you for the question. We have very close working relationships with the provinces and territories, most often positive, but obviously there are tensions between the systems. Supports for asylum seekers tend to fall between both the federal and the provincial government in terms of coordinating. And so with the rise of asylum seekers in the last number of years leading up until the period we're currently in where we're seeing declines, that obviously strained the resources for some municipalities and some provinces. And so through a body, the federal ministers responsible for immigration, we continue to coordinate our efforts to try to align those resources. As the minister spoke about earlier, obviously we have provided funding to various municipalities and some provinces to support their infrastructure. And work to try and coordinate not just sort of how do we provide relief in the moment, but how do we work together to reduce reliance on those systems as quickly as possible as people progress through the system. So a lot of the resources that we've invested have been directed at building capacity in the recent years.
Perfect. And on enforcement, there have been claims that individuals who do not have a legal right to remain in Canada are not being removed in a timely manner. Can you outline the processes in place to ensure that decisions are being enforced and how the system maintains credibility through both fair hearings and appropriate follow-through process?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously removals are the purview of CBSA, and so I'm sure they would be able to offer more detail on that. But what I can say is the removal process itself from the time someone is deemed to need to be removed, they have access to the IRB and as well to the courts after that, should they feel that their circumstances warrant a review from an outside body. Once they've exhausted those options, then CBSA would work with international partners in some cases to ensure that we have the capacity to then remove them to their country of origin.
And given some of the concerns and misinformation that we've heard, what would you want Canadians to understand about how the asylum system is functioning today and how it ensures that it remains compassionate and well managed?
I mean, I think Canada has a long tradition of offering humanitarian compassion to people who need protection. That's a reputation that Canada has fought hard to preserve. I think we all recognize the system, though, is under strain, and so we have taken significant steps to address some of the causes of those strains, and we're seeing that now in terms of the significant reductions in the last year and a half in terms of asylum claimants coming to Canada, while not sacrificing access to due process and the entitlements that people have. Obviously, as you all know, C-12 introduces some additional measures that will strengthen our ability to ensure that the limited resources we have for asylum are focused on the cases that most require it. And to ensure that we continue to evolve the system so that it's targeting the people who absolutely need Canada's protection.
And as you know, Budget 2025 included a one-time initiative to convert protected persons in Canada to permanent residents, in addition to the Levels Plan allocations. Could you clarify why this measure was introduced and what it means for Canadians?
Just under 1 minute.
Okay. So very quickly, protected persons in Canada are people who've already been deemed by either the IRB or another process to warrant Canada's protection. Their case has been reviewed and they've been determined to warrant our protection. Because of the limited space that we have in the Levels Plan, converting people from that category, the protected persons in Canada category, to permanent residents takes a long time. And so this one-time initiative will basically offer the opportunity to address the backlog of people waiting for PR in that category specifically, and bring resolution to their situation in a more expedited way.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you, Ms. Sodi. À prochaine, on a 2 minutes et demie pour Monsieur Deschênes.
And we now have 2.5 minutes for Mr. Deschênes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be happy for 5 or 6. No, I'm very sorry. 2.5 minutes only. This is ongoing. That's how it works here then. Yes, I'm so sorry. All right, we'll adapt. My question is for Ms. Bronwyn-May. Are you able to hear me? Good. Oh, you speak French. Excellent. Could you please explain? I understand that you are the Director General, International Students Branch. How is it that there are 800 cases regarding which problems had been found, where study permits had been based on fraudulent documentation in a number of cases? Apparently, diplomas supposedly from institutions that didn't even exist, but that your department did not follow up on this. And could I perhaps answer, given that Ms. May is in charge of the branch overall, but integrity issues fall to me as Associate Deputy Minister. I say that the figure that you have mentioned from the Auditor General's report is a number which is an initial indicator. We have centralized our examination process for such cases, and we are working with our partners. Well, we're told there are 800 cases, and there are probably many more. The Auditor General has managed to identify 800 of them, for which you were told that fraudulent documentation had been provided and there's no follow-up. Yes, but the potential for fraudulent documents, well, that they had used fraudulent documents or provided erroneous information to get into Canada. And the Auditor General says this is a serious problem because you did not undertake any action to counter this on any of these cases. That is why we have created now a central process to follow up on this and such cases. As you know, the measures that we have brought in to improve processes are quite new. Our priority at the outset was to prevent people from coming in at the outset, but we've now turned to working with partners to address issues of cases of people already in Canada to solve them. Thank you, Mr. Harris, and thank you, Mr. Deschênes.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, your department made a big noise about getting out of the hotel business. The government had been spending hundreds of millions, I think close to $1 billion, paying for hotels for asylum seekers. You got out of that business with great fanfare. Now, recently, you just actually provided funding for the City of Ottawa to buy $40 million to buy a hotel to continue funding. So isn't this just shuffling money around?
For the question, I wouldn't describe it as shuffling money around. We've been working with municipalities to ensure that they have the infrastructure they need to support the population. We've moved out of the business of housing, which was a direct provision of service, and did not build capacity. It basically solved the problem for a day. We're working with the cities is in design to help them build capacity in their systems for the long term.
So essentially, though, you are fooling Canadians, though, because you're saying we're not spending money on this, yet you're spending millions of dollars buying infrastructure. So you're not renting hotels, but you're buying infrastructure. I get it. It's really the same thing. But I want to switch over to
disingenuous, to be clear.
Sorry, I just want to switch over to the Auditor General's report this morning. there was the mention of 150 plus thousand cases of potential fraud. And it gets back to what the minister just told us, that the department can only investigate 2,000 cases. Can you confirm that? Is that correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to put up an approximate, but we have to prioritize our resources. Obviously, we can't follow up on every signal that there is. I will say that the 150,000 number it's a very large number that does not reflect necessarily equal degrees of seriousness, and can reflect actually some misreporting from institutions.
And that's fair. I'm not really concerned so much about, I'm concerned about that number, but the one that really struck me was the 2,000, because your department has, I think, close to $6 billion of resources in the last year and the year before, I believe somewhere around that magnitude. And so basically you're saying that however many thousands of potentially fraudulent cases there are, we are capped at 2,000 because all of this other billions of dollars we're spending on all these other priorities. That's essentially what you're saying, is that it doesn't matter if there's more fraud, you're not going to allocate resources to that because 2,000 is the cap. Is that a fair assessment of what's happened in the department?
No, I wouldn't describe that as fair.
So it's more than 2,000 then?
What I would say is that first of all, in the Division of Responsibilities at CBSA is responsible for inland enforcement. So our integrity measures supplement the work that they do, and that's an important distinction, as they have the enforcement officer capacity in Canada. I will say that the number of 2,000 is a best guess in terms of the current investigation processes. We have unrolled a whole suite of new risk tools that will allow us to take advantage of new technologies to identify trends and to intervene more quickly in cases going forward. So that number it's not written in stone, but it's about capacity.
But the minister did say it, and I think from what you're telling me, there could have been more resources allocated to investigate more, even because of the thousands of potential fraud cases, but it wasn't, right? And that's the reality of what's happened in the last couple of years. That's what's been reported and what's been said by the minister. On C3, the minister was confused again, as she always is. I think what you whispered in her ear was that there were 1,501 Canadians, or people have received Canadian citizenship since December 15th. Am I correct on that?
It's 1,301, sorry.
1,301, yeah. Okay, thank you. And what I was trying to get at was which she didn't understand, was the request for proof of citizenship, which is a different thing. Do you have any records? Do you know how many people have applied for proof of citizenship since December 15th?
I don't have them with me today. We can provide those. I haven't seen a rise in, we haven't seen a trend line that has been identified as being significant change.
If you could provide that to the committee, that would be helpful. On the IRB, given the war that's going on in Iran right now, have there been discussions between your department and IRB about finding ways of being more careful in screening of Iranian claims for asylum?
1 minute.
Sorry. So screening, the IRB isn't involved necessarily in screening. If you're talking about security screening, that's between CBSA, CSIS, and IRCC.
I'm talking about not necessarily screening per se, but being carefully looking at these cases in terms of whether they should be approved or not, particularly given that we know that IRGC officials are in Canada, have gotten through our system, and I'm sure are working very hard to try to get into Canada right now, given the war that's going on.
We've
had discussions about that.
Oh, sorry. We've had significant conversation with IRB, with CBSA, and others since the regimes were designated in 2022, and then the IRGC was expanded as a designated entity, or a listed entity for terrorism, to ensure that we're addressing the cases seeking to come to Canada, and we are preventing cases from coming to Canada, but also then to address any cases that may be in Canada that may have become inadmissible as a result of those changes.
So since the war, you haven't increased that? It's going on at the same level of discussions?
No, I would say obviously the current war elevates the number of conversations that are happening at various levels.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you, Mr. Redikoff. Next, we have 5 minutes for Ms. Zaid.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is in regards to the supplementary estimates. It includes funding for the passport programs of approximately over $52 million. So could you please tell us about the department's effort to improve the speed of delivery of the passport program and the progress that has been made already?
Yeah, we work with Service Canada, who's the service delivery arm of getting passports to Canadians. Our service delivery standards, we're exceeding them and have been for a number of years. A couple of initiatives, obviously, that have happened is the online passport applications for adult renewals. We are continuing to move forward with that, and that is showing great progress in terms of making it both easier for people to get their passport, but also speedier, given that it's directly online. The other thing I would say, the resources in the supplementary estimates are meant to address sort of a lingering fiscal concern in the revolving fund for passports as a result of the drop in applications that occurred during the pandemic. It was a significant decline in the revenues that were coming in on passports, while the expenses obviously were still incurring in terms of delivering the service. And so this will situate the fund in a position going forward that will enable us to continue to assure that we can meet those service standards going forward.
I also see IRCC is requesting $14.5 million for the 2025-2027 immigration levels transition plan. So can you please explain what purpose will this funding serve?
So you'll know that levels plan that's identified there was the first levels plan that saw a reduction in the number of people coming into Canada. Our funding is tied to the number of people who come into Canada, and as a result of that, we had a significant fiscal reduction in the previous fiscal year, so heading into 25-26, and we had to reduce our workforce, and so that money was specifically identified in that earlier budget for workforce adjustment costs to reduce the workforce as a result of having to process fewer cases.
My next question is in regards to what impacts are you seeing with the reduction in the international students on the housing market, like especially for a city of Toronto? What effects have you seen that, like how this reduction in the, what impact the reduction of international students is having on the housing market?
I wouldn't be able to specifically say whether it's international students exclusively that are affecting the housing markets in any jurisdiction. I will say that, as the minister mentioned, several reports have identified that the reductions in immigration more broadly have eased tension on rental prices in some locations and housing prices as well. So it is easing some of the pressure in particularly the most populous cities for people to access housing going forward. But the degree to which I can attribute that to international students versus other populations, I can't do that.
How much time do I have?
You have 1 minute and 45 seconds.
Okay. So in regards to this modernization program, which, and you have requested money in these estimates, what exactly are you doing and how that would be beneficial to the Canadians, that modernization? Any few major items which you will be doing in the modernization project?
Modernization is not just an IT project. It's a transformation of how we do business. It moves IRCC from being an application-based department to being a client-based department, which will enable us to serve clients better through the course of their immigration journey. It will be enabled by IT platforms, and we're already seeing the early benefits of that. So, for example, visa applicants and some passport applicants can create an online account today, which is the first step, obviously, in being able to monitor your own case and track your case through the immigration process. We have also run a pilot project with e-visas for the first time, which will be transformative for Canada when we are able to roll that out, so the Canadians will no longer have to submit their passports and or foreign nationals will not have to submit their passports and have visas applied. We've already launched our client support service module, which enables our client support staff to be able to better respond to the needs of people seeking information about their file. And as we move forward, these tools will continue to roll out in a gradual way to ensure that we're improving every business line that we work through.
Thank you, Ms. Zaid. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Next, we have 5 minutes for Ms. Rempel-Garner.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Harris, welcome. Earlier, my colleague asked you a question with relation to a quote that Minister Fraser had given in the past, where he had said that large numbers of international students were good for the economy. You said the context is different today. What's different?
I think it was Minister Miller he was quoting.
There's both of them.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, I think obviously since 2023, the government has committed to reducing the number of people coming to Canada to get to sustainable levels, and that speaks specifically to a growing awareness about challenges with housing, healthcare, access to services more broadly, not just for Canadians, but for foreign nationals as well. And so that context has shifted dramatically, obviously, since 2023.
Probably because there was like over 1 million students brought in roughly 2 years.
There was a significant growth post the pandemic.
I call it the Fraser bulge, but nonetheless. So the context has changed. We have the Fraser bulge. The Fraser bulge, those millions of people, they're on expiring and expired permits. You're about to bring in roughly 155,000 new permits. Are you assuming all of the people with expired permits will leave?
It's our expectation that they would leave. Now, do we assume that they leave? Obviously not. That's why we have integrity measures, and we work with our partners to take steps to do what we can to monitor.
So just to be clear, you've set the 155,000 new student permit levels, assuming that all of those expiring visa permit holders will leave on their own, magically.
So the calculation that you see, the 155,000 is new permits, as you know.
Right.
There's also extensions and transitions to other other statuses, work permits, et cetera. And so we factor in all of those considerations.
So you said the context has changed. We have a pretty big youth jobs crisis, right? You've just testified to committee that you guys don't have the resources to look at more than 2,000 cases of fraud, even though the Auditor General found potentially 150,000 cases of fraud. We have millions of people on expired work permits, a youth jobs crisis, and yet you're still issuing 155,000 new foreign student permits this year. Why?
Well, just to clarify, my testimony wasn't that we could only do the 2,000. I know that was the question.
That's what the minister said, though. So are you contradicting her?
My point was that we will use our resources to the greatest effect.
Right.
And so
just to be
if
clear,
we can improve our tools, we will be able to work with our partners to address even more cases.
The minister. So are you contradicting what your minister said? She said that you guys
I think the
only
minister
had.
was speaking about the current level of resources and how they've been allocated. What I'm talking about is the capacity for us to evolve
So
our
how many
investigation
cases
techniques.
could you do that at
It'll
warp
depend.
speed, warp 9?
Yeah, well, that would depend on the tools that we can embrace, and obviously I don't want to talk about the tools themselves here for
How many cases can you look at?
I wouldn't want to approximate that at this point.
I think you should. This is a major news story right now. So how many cases is it?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to speculate here.
So I'm going to take that as a legislator who's here to allocate money to your department that you don't know. Would that be correct?
Well, I would say in any enforcement space, you are obligated to prioritize the use of your resources to the most concerning
Do you think that
cases.
spending $40 million on a hotel for failed asylum claimants is a priority use over, say, allocating resources to look at international student permit fraud?
I think those are competing priority policy.
Which one is
priorities.
greater?
That would be up to parliamentarians to.
Well, no. Your department keeps adding supplementary more money than the mains to
1
the
minute.
subs, right? So you're asking us to validate your priorities. So I want to know, Mr. Harris, as the new DM, what is your priority? You've asked us for $40 million for an asylum claimant hotel to be bought, and you're saying that we don't have more than bandwidth than 2,000 cases of fraud to be prosecuted, while you're bringing in 155,000 more people. I'll tell you, if I was the minister, we'd be having this conversation. It seems a little bananas to me.
Yeah, no, I would say the supplementary estimates are brought forward by ministers as well. These are government priorities, and I should clarify.
Did you advise the minister? Would you advise the minister today that perhaps there should be greater priority and emphasis given on litigating fraud, and/or that we shouldn't be bringing in more international student permits until there's a removal plan for the millions of permits that have already expired?
I believe that we need to balance our priorities off.
What does
We need to-
balance mean?
Well, we continue to need to bring people to Canada to
What
grow
about the kids that don't have
town
jobs?
base.
Why
need
aren't
to
we
make that a
focusing on labor
priority as well.
mobility strategies? This is wild to me. It's wild, right?
Thank
you know
you,
that.
Ms. Rumpel-Gardner. Thank you, Mr. Harris. That's 5 minutes. Next, we move to Mr. Zuberi for 5 minutes. Your 5 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to witnesses for being here today. I'll continue with you, Mr. Harris, along the same lines of questioning that we were just hearing about. I know there was a lot of back and forth where I was trying to listen to what your answer was, couldn't get it because of interruptions. In terms of the hotel, IRCC, all of that theme, do you want to add anything to that before I go into my other lines of questions?
As you know, we stood down our hotel program, that the integrated interim lodging strategy, and we are continuing to work with our provinces and municipal partners to ensure they have the capacity to deal with the needs in their communities with respect to homelessness and housing. That's been the focus, and that actually was the focus in 2017, was to work with jurisdictions to build their capacity to deal with any pressures that they face, and that has remained the strategy.
Thank you, and I appreciate that clarification for the record and for the benefit of all Canadians. With respect to, I want to shift gears for a moment, talk about what's on the minds of also many Canadians, which is we're in an unfortunate part in world history where there are so many conflicts happening, and so many Canadians have loved ones in conflict zones. And there are a number of programs which speak to our humanitarian spirit as Canadians, and as we've always been, looking out for one another, looking out for humanity. There are a few things, programs I want to highlight and ask you about. The first off is Gazans, Canadians who have loved ones, family members, direct family members in Gaza. Our government did bring forth an important program, which is similar to other programs, about reunification for Gaza. Can you give us an update about where we are with respect to that, and what's the prospectus for the future on that program?
Yeah, happy to speak to that. So the program you're speaking about was the commitment to 5,000 through the public policy, a temporary resident public policy that allowed for reunification. Of that, we've received applications against that program. It's a total number of 6,350 applications, and so far we've approved 1,325 of those applications, and 970 people have arrived in Canada specifically through the program. We also continue to receive applications outside of the program, and so at the same time we've processed approved another 610 outside of the policy program, for a total of 1,390 people who have arrived in Canada to date from the conflict.
Thank you. I've met a number of these people who have fled, are fleeing horror, essentially, the horrors of war, complete devastation, their homes completely razed, family members, dear ones killed, and others having serious injuries such as amputations, etc. With respect to those I've met, they have said that they are having a challenging time to get their feet settled here in Canada. What type of services and supports are you offering to those who are arriving here from that war zone?
Yeah, we've obviously it is a family reunification process, and so normally under such processes we do count on families to be a first base of support, but we have provided nominal supports on arrival, and then they have access to our settlement services. So that they can continue to benefit from the existing network of resources.
In the next minute that I have, I'd like to focus on the M62 Uyghur program, which is welcoming those who are also deeply vulnerable, not for the same reasons, but those who are deeply vulnerable. And I want to applaud your department for welcoming refugees who are deeply vulnerable, facing persecution. I want to know what's the prospectus for this program. How are we doing so far with respect to welcoming Uyghurs here fleeing persecution?
I mean, I know you know this program very well. To date, we've received 860 applications, and about 265 arrivals have occurred. As you know, it's a very difficult population to serve, to reach, and to ensure that we can provide the necessary protections along the pathway without putting them at additional risk. So we're working with our community partners to make sure that we're doing this work in a very sensitive way. So progress is continuing to
I would like to register. I would appreciate picking up the pace on this. Thank you for what you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Zuberi. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Next we have, c'est à vous, Monsieur Duchesne, 2 minutes et demie.
Over to you, Mr. Duchesne. You have 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Harris, let's continue discussing the investigations undertaken when you receive quarterly reports that seem to show problems. Foreign students not respecting their conditions. For example, what we can see is that of the 1,073,000 students who may not be respecting conditions, only 4,000 investigations were undertaken in 2023-2024. Will this improve? In 2025, there were 35,000 cases only regarding which we have concerns. And we are now evaluating each and every one of them because there are circumstances that aren't problematic. Yes, but it has to be investigated. So 2,000 investigations a year. Are you doing more than that now? Well, look, we must find ways to follow up in a different fashion with different processes. Are you carrying out more investigations now than you were in 2023-24? Probably, yes. Probably? Well, the reason I'm hesitating slightly is because investigation, that's a very formal matter, at least for us. For us, it's often simply a follow-up. Okay, a check, and there are some cases that aren't serious and you don't need a full investigation. Okay, but we need to know because the Auditor General says only 2,000 a year. Yes, but those are full investigations. And now you say, we've got fewer foreign students, so things will get better. But that's not my question. My question is, are you able to carry out more verifications or investigations than in the past? Yes. Yes, you have? But yes, because we have improved our tools. All right, so how much more then? How many more? I can't, pull a number out of a hat right now, but what leads you to say then that there are more? Because our tools have been improved. And we can work more closely with certain institutions to validate, for example, information far more quickly. And if we can settle cases quickly, it's easier to go to full investigations and so on and finish those as well. Thank you, Mr. Harris and Mr. Deschênes. Now we have 5 minutes for Mr. Davies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The announcement today in the news, the Auditor General's report, and the questions around the table today are critical to the entire topic that we've been talking about all day. But I need to return back to my earlier questioning about the Express Entry program, because the crisis in our medical system across Canada is equally as important as all of the issues we're talking about today. We need to find ways for the doctors that are waiting for both residency, accreditation, review by provincial authorities. But my information tells me now that only about 2% of the existing backlog of physicians have been successful through the Express Entry program. Mr. Harris, you said you had a good relationship, and the department has a good relationship with provincial partners and private sector partners. But where is the pain point? Where, if we do actually have over 13,000 doctors in Canada that can't get residency or a license to practice, why? I just want to juxtapose this against the target of another 5,000 people that may actually end up in a greater backlog. How do we fix that?
2 points of clarification. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify it. So the first problem you're talking about, as you're rightly citing, is a problem with foreign credential recognition. Those numbers are people who are not available to work in that workforce today because they are not recognized, their credentials are not recognized, and their experience is not recognized. Sure.
Do that. But these are people that are already in Canada.
Right.
These are people with medical degrees that we have stalled in a system because we can't get the paperwork verified. Is that correct?
Verified or equivalized. So, I'm not an expert in foreign credential recognition. The colleges in each of the provinces deal with foreign credential recognition. We are partnering with our Health Canada colleagues and our provincial colleagues and others to find ways to streamline this. And some provinces have been incredibly creative in fast tracking.
This sort of goes to the heart with all the interprovincial trade barriers. Everything we do in Canada seem to have barriers as we go down through jurisdictional levels. But if we have, look, I have 2 hospitals in my riding that are closing because we can't find primary care doctors. Yet we have between 13 and 18,000 doctors that are sitting here in Canada waiting to go through that process. Again, like if you want, you've with great fanfare, the minister has announced that she wants to add another 5,000. It sounds great, but what about the 13, 15, 18,000 that are already sitting here? Is there not a way that you can coordinate better with your partners in the industry to fast track those critical care doctors that mean so much to my region in Niagara?
What I would say is we're working with our partners. We don't have any authorities or anything that we can force colleges and to recognize people.
But you've allowed them in the country because they were doctors.
Well, they may have come in under a variety of different reasons. They may not have come in to practice their medicine. They may have come in for family reunification processes.
But not 18,000.
Over the course of a long time, that number could accumulate.
But that's what we're looking for now. That's what we're looking at now in the gap of the people that are in Canada wanting to practice medicine, wanting to come to Niagara, wanting to help me save the 2 hospitals that are closing, but we can't get them through the system. This is highly critical. Do you have any thoughts on how we can fix this and make it faster so that these doctors can actually get to work in Canada?
There's some best practices emerging in Canada. So some of the provinces, I know, for example, one case I was familiar with about 3 years ago of an asylum claimant who was a medical doctor who came to Canada, went to Alberta because Alberta had a program at the time, I don't know if it's still in place, where they can intern underneath the supervision of another person and get fast-tracked to serve their northern communities.
1 minute.
So we would advocate for anything that can be done to streamline that. Just on the 5,000, I did want to say, like, we are making a priority for in-Canada doctors to be converted to permanent residents. That is of the 5,000 isn't just new people coming into the country. It's also people already here who haven't secured permanent residency to become permanent residents in Canada.
In addition to the many thousands that are still waiting to get through that residency process?
Well, it depends on what your number is based on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there were about 1,000 Canadian international medical students that were turned away last year for residencies. Is part of the problem that the hospital capacity is not there to actually give jobs to these doctors?
I can't speak to that.
Okay, so this is pretty low-hanging fruit. If you've got internationally trained doctors, graduates, some of whom are Canadian, that can't get residencies in here. Is there not a process as they go through this application, as they go through the application process, are these issues not identified, and why would they be turned away?
Again, I can't speak to these. These are programs that are regulated by the provinces and territories.
Okay. So
thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you, Mr. Davies. Very important questions. Ms. Sodi, it is now for you, 5 minutes.
It was for Ms. Zaid.
Oh, Ms. Zaid. No, I have you, Ms. Sodi.
Oh, okay.
I know
Perfect.
you guys want to battle out. But we'll go over to you, Ms.
Okay,
Sodi.
perfect. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That's okay. So I just want to talk a little bit more about the immigration system in general. Are you able to walk us through how stakeholders and Canadians were consulted during the preparation of the 2026 to 2028 levels plan and how their input shaped this year's plan?
Yeah, so we have established a fairly rigorous consultation process where we talked to over 800 organizations and stakeholders directly. And then we also receive submissions from tens of thousands of Canadians who make representation in terms of their views in terms of how the plan is shaped.
Okay, perfect. And the department and the minister have spoken quite a bit about restoring stability to the immigration system. Are you able to explain what that stability looks like in practice and how Canadians will notice it in their day-to-day lives?
Well, for us, the measures of stability have been well defined. So it's ensuring that permanent residents by 2027 are no more than 1% of the population in total. That temporary residents represent no more than 5% of the Canadian population, again, by 2027. Those are the primary indicators of sustainability, and that is what the programs are designed to achieve, and that's what we're working towards.
Okay, perfect. And one of the main goals of the department is to reduce Canada's non-permanent resident population to under 5% by 2027. Are you able to update the committee on progress so far and how this year's plan helps achieve that target?
Well, I mean, I would turn to the Stats Canada report that just came out last week that shows that we're at 6.5% from a high of 7.6%. So well within the track that we anticipate to be able to achieve that 5%.
Perfect. And the new levels plan that was introduced adjust allocations for foreign labor programs. How is IRCC balancing national sustainability with regional labor needs, particularly in rural and remote areas?
As has been spoken about, like we have tailored our recruitment strategies or our programming to be able to address different needs. Obviously, the labor market is very different in certain sectors. We've spoken about healthcare as one area where it's particularly strained, but we also know trades and other spaces are strained. And then we know those strains can be amplified, particularly in remote areas, more rural and remote areas. And so we are looking at designing our programs or refining our programs to ensure that we are where we are offering access to employment immigration or economic immigration. It speaks as well not just to the overall number for Canada, but also to the regional needs and the sectoral needs that we have. For example, we are looking with ESDC at ways that we can adjust programs with the consent of provinces and territories to address how they apply the temporary foreign worker program for rural areas that would be different than, say, in areas that are not. In addition, you may be aware that they introduced a change where if you live in an area where there's more than 6% unemployment rate, you don't have access to some temporary foreign workers that you might in areas that have a much greater strain for labor. And so trying to ensure that we build differentiating programs that allow us to target needs in various parts of the country and, as I said, across various sectors.
And Budget 2025 invests in attracting global talent to Canadian universities and research institutions. Are you able to briefly explain what role IRCC is playing in facilitating this strategy, and how does it tie into, once again, the Levels Plan?
50 seconds.
Okay.
Very briefly.
I said earlier, we provided advice in terms of how the immigration system could work to support the objective of recruiting top talent to Canada in that space. So for us, that involves fast-tracking processing where possible and ensuring that we're supporting a faster movement of people in that academic space. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sodi. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Because we just have a little bit of remaining time, we're going to give 2 minutes to Mr. Menegakis and then 2 minutes to Ms. Zaid. Mr. Menegakis, your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, how many more hotels have you helped purchase with municipalities, other than the $40 million that you've already testified to?
Yeah, I can't speak to how each municipality has used those resources. Most the Ottawa purchase.
Not how they use them. Is how many have you funded?
Well, we've provided the funding to municipalities who have then made decisions to do that. So whether they've purchased old buildings, they're not often hotels, but they purchased other buildings and retrofitted them into shelter capacity.
So how did you budget for this? Out of the $6 billion, you just put a hotel buy line on your budget?
We don't have a hotel line. We have an interim housing assistance program that has been in place since 2017. That goes to provinces in most cases, but in Ontario it goes directly to municipalities.
So you basically shifted money from paying for hotels to giving money to municipalities so they can buy properties to house these people. And then it becomes less transparent, correct?
Two separate programs. As I say, the IHAP program, the housing assistance program that goes to provinces and municipalities, existed before the interim lodging strategy, which was in place for hotels that dealt with the post-pandemic border reopening pressure that we felt before we closed the between the ports part on the STC.
So how did you prioritize Ottawa, say, over Montreal or Toronto or Vancouver? Why was Ottawa such a hotbed that they got a walloping $40 million?
Well, I'd say we didn't prioritize them. The municipalities self-identified as having a pressure as a result of where asylum claimants were arriving.
Share with the committee which municipalities and how much money they got for this?
We can provide that.
Will
as
you
a return
undertake
to
to
the
provide that, please? Because that's important information. So I don't know how much time I have left, but in that.
9 seconds.
9 seconds? Well, Thanks for coming, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Matigakis.
But please provide that information to us, okay? Thank
Okay,
you.
Ms. Zaid for 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question to Mr. Harris is about a lot of casework coming to my constituency office, like the delays are when the staff inquires is about the security screening. So is your department working with the Public Safety Department to bring more transparency to the security screening processes? Because there are a lot of delays in spousal application, TRVs, like every category.
So we have an ongoing working relationship with CBSA and CSIS, who are our primary partners in the security screening space, and they have been working on strategies to reduce timelines where appropriate. Obviously, we don't want to introduce security risks to the country, and so we want to make sure we continue to have rigor in the system. So it's about making sure that we can clear out cases where there aren't a concern as quickly as possible. And so there are discussions going to that effect to try and determine that.
In regards to the level plans, the consultations which you do, how do you work with the provinces and the territories in regards to the immigration levels?
So we, as we say, we consult with the provinces and territories. We have regular ongoing engagement with them. They identify to us what their requests are. We factor in as much of those requests as possible into the planning process. So, for example, provinces and territories own the provincially nominated nominee program spaces, and so we work with them to try and allocate them in the best interests of what provinces and territories are seeking, while protecting that we have the federal economic space as well to ensure that we have the capacity to bring people into the country at a talent level.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Zaid. Thank you, Mr. Harris. I want to thank all the witnesses for their important testimony. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here for 2 hours. I think that the question answers have been very helpful over the last hour. Just for colleagues, on Wednesday, we resume our study on Canada's immigration system. We do have 2 full panels. We will begin for about 5 minutes right at the front end, just to do the final bits that we have to do for our international student study. So just a few things we have to pass. Reminder for all dissenting reports, they have to be in this Wednesday at 5 p.m. And I think with that, thanks very much. Have a good day. This meeting's adjourned.